Hey gamers, it's Kwing here, the real Game Master, video game reviewer extraordinaire for Got Game, Renegade Reviewers, TheRealGameMaster.com, and Game Nights Entertainment. Now, I know it's been almost 3 weeks since the last Game Nights video review. Now, on episode 6 of the weekly radio show, I did mention that I was in the process of making a review for Pitfall's 90s reboot. Well, better late than never, right? Man, this game brought back a flood of memories for me, but I'll try not to hit you folks with too many of my nostalgia waves, as my fans put it. Now, I owned Pitfall on the Super Nintendo, and not the Sega Genesis, but the only difference that I can see between the two games right now is that the Super Nintendo had way better music, but the graphics are pretty much identical. What I do find kinda odd is that the Sega Genesis was a port of the Super Nintendo game, yet Sega and Activision released this game on the Virtual Console and not the Super Nintendo game. Very strange. It's still an awesome game though. Pitfall's story is your typical rescue someone plotline. In this case, you have to save your father, who was kidnapped at the beginning of the game. The Mayan Adventure is a mix between action-adventure and your typical platforming. This isn't your father's Pitfall game after all, or would it be grandfather's now? The Mayan Adventure seems to be more like an Indiana Jones knockoff, at least the first time you play through the game. Anyway, players take on the role of Pitfall Harry Jr., the son of the hero from the 2600 days, you know, the Atari. The Mayan Adventures also has a lot of problem-solving elements as well, which, honestly, I loved. The only real similarities with the last Pitfall game is the jumping and the swinging on vines. That's about it, so like father, like son, right? People who have played or remembered the first Pitfall game on the Atari would get most of the jokes that Activision has thrown into this game, so that was pretty nice. Pitfall's reboot was the best thing to happen in the series since 1982. Just like the first game, Mayan Adventure had lots of environmental hazards too that could do you in at any moment. The player makes their way through a bunch of levels and you face a boss after beating the ruins. Well, actually, you face the same boss 3 times. The player could now finally defend themselves from animals and monsters with a slingshot. Still, I wasn't a big fan of the slingshot, because you threw little rocks, and they don't really work well since the Old Testament times, but I could see LucasArts getting very annoyed if Junior here used a whip. So, the overall concept for this game is to travel through the Amazon rainforest, and of course, rescue your kidnapped father. Alrighty, it's time to dive into the controls. The 1 button will make you jump, and the 2 button will fire your slingshot, and the A button will whip it at enemies, which is good for killing enemies and not wasting your rock ammo if they're like right next to you. But for control purposes, I want to use all my ammo anyway so I can show you different weapons. To select different weapons, hit the minus button. As you can see, I'm now using my boomerang. For more powerful attacks too, you can also hold in the 2 button, but I personally find it a waste of time unless you're trying to knock out a spider web or kill one of the harder to kill enemies. Climbing up objects is done by jumping and tapping up. Pushing switches is basically done automatically just by walking into them. Sometimes you'll need to crawl under certain objects too. To do this, press down and hit the 1 button. And that pretty much wraps up the controls. Gameplay-wise, this game is terrific and so much fun. Too bad Indiana Jones' Greatest Adventures couldn't match this game's sheer awesomeness. Still, as great as this game is, I still have some major gripes with it. First off, I didn't like this minigame with the throwing the switches, probably because I wasn't really good with flash memory as a kid. I also didn't like the fact that the slingshot is so weak. Even close range where you slap people, there's no way to level up this thing, and that's a major drag for me. The other major complaint I have with this is the Jaguar bosses. It's not like they're hard or anything, but why in the world would we need to fight them 3 different times? I mean, what is the deal? Seriously! It seems that all retro games suffer from the ills of flying enemies, and Mayan Adventure is no different. Finally, the last boss is wicked cheap, and you should be able to run away from her or something, but he uses this tractor beam, and then you're screwed. One of the things that I thought was really generous of the developers was the ability to play the original Pitfall included in this game. Considering the game came out a year before I was born, honestly, I didn't miss that much. Still, if you would really like to play this game on the Virtual Console, then enter this cheat. On the title screen, press down, then tap A 26 times, and then press down again. If this is right, awesome. If not, then try GameFAQs. This game also had some mind-bending graphics for its day. My favorite level was this stage because of the awesome waterfall and the ripple effects in the water and just the background. It was just a beautiful stage, and I still love playing through it. Probably the reason I love this stage so much too is because the upgraded port my dad bought for his IBM back in '95. That level looks so cool. Plus, it was on a CD! That was a big deal almost 15 years ago. Now, not so much. The thing that has me replaying this game over and over again, and even today on the Virtual Console, is not just the radical memories or the tubular gameplay. I most enjoyed the problem-solving element for this game as well. See, players couldn't just go from point A to point B just like that. We had to backtrack through the level and find certain switches so we could unlock the next area. And this was unheard of back then, so this was a pretty big deal, and I still love that about this game. Most of the time, too, the door that would open wouldn't necessarily lead you to the next area either. Sometimes you needed to go through the floor. Now, the hazards are another big plus for this game as well. It made the game a bit more challenging, and it added a slight sense of danger around every corner, too. So, for a game like this, you want it to be kind of tense, but at the same time, it was a lot of fun. So that being said, Game Nights Entertainment gives Pitfall's '94 reboot a 9 out of 10. Pitfall the Mayan Adventure had a lot to offer gamers then and now. It has a lot of replay value, there's a lot of stuff to do in the game, and it is so much fun, and the gameplay is fantastic. I would really suggest that you guys download this game on your Wii's Virtual Console for just 800 Nintendo points. Trust me, you can't go wrong with an epic game like this!